afternoon and welcome. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming to Career Conversations with Marketing Grads or professionals working in marketing. My name is Liz Cook and I am the Employer and Alumni Liaison at the Career Center here at York. We have Raj Balasubramanian. He is Global Marketing Manager, Program Delivery with KPMG. And next to Raj, we have Steve Toth. He's Director of Internet Marketing with TechWyse Internet Marketing. And next to Steve, we have Aleena Mazhar. She's Director of Experiential Marketing with Fuse Marketing Group. And next to Aleena is Imtiaz, and she's Loyalty and Partner Manager with Suncor Energy, Petro-Canada. And on the end of our panel, we have David Wan, who is Manager, Analytics and Insights with SHOP.CA Network.
My name is David Wan, Manager of Analytics for SHOP.CA. Really my role is to help a lot of the marketing team and marketers within SHOP.CA make better decisions, make better data-driven decisions. So my role is a lot of statistical analysis married with technology, and at the end of the day, a little bit of finance in order to kind of paint that complete picture of we have a campaign, did it work out, did it perform the way we expected it, and if not, then what can we do better next time?
My name is Imtiaz. So within my current role with Petro-Canada, I work specifically on our Petro-Points loyalty program, and what that entails is basically a Jane of all trades. So we do everything from the front end strategy, future state, short term, strategy development, figuring out how to execute certain programs and strategies and partnerships. So for example, we have partnerships in place with CAA, Discount, Car Rental, iTravel2000.com. Anything that you see in terms of implementing our loyalty program, any guest-facing strategies, I pretty much look after them from beginning to end. And then also a little bit of the analytics piece when it comes to how our programs and campaigns perform. And how we can continue to improve and really tackle the Canadian loyalty landscape.
My name's Aleena. I work at Fuse Marketing Group. So we are a marketing agency and we essentially work with clients like a Petro-Canada and other big brands to help them build their overall marketing strategy. So I work mostly on the creative side of things. I'm the Director of Experiential, so I work with our internal teams and our clients to build experiences for their consumers. So those experiences can be as big as launches and creative stunts and campaigns, and can also be as tactical as in-store sampling and getting product into consumers' hands. So anything that has to do with consumer relationships and one-on-one engagement with consumers, that's where my team would sort of come in and build creative solutions to problems that our clients may have.
All right, my name is Steve Toth. I'm the Director of Internet Marketing at an agency called TechWyse. And what we do is primarily search marketing. So things like Google AdWords, SEO, organic search rankings, those are our sort of two main core competencies. And the type of client that we service mainly are lead generation type clients. So, something like, let's say, a dentist or a plastic surgeon or a company that renovates windows and doors throughout Ontario. These are, companies where one lead can, mean big, like a fair amount of business for them. So we try to basically, initiate our program with a goal in mind, and that is cost per lead, and then measure all of our efforts towards that, and try and hit a goal where we've said, okay, we've spent our budget of $20,000 and we've netted this client 200 leads. That's what our bread and butter is, really. It's not marketing, mass marketing to consumers or anything like that. It's more about helping small to medium-sized businesses, which actually get a lot of satisfaction from.
I'm Raj. I'm a manager in the Global Marketing Group at KPMG. As you guys probably all know, KPMG is an accounting organization, so we have audit, tax, and advisory, and my role in the organization and specifically in the group is to look at campaigns that span across different regions, different industries. Give you an example, the recent campaign that I worked on was the World Economic Forum at Davos, Switzerland, where we talked about sustainable development goals set by the UN and how that would apply to our top 30% of our clientele. So looking at the global picture and looking at what campaigns our clients are involved in and what we can help them with, beyond the regular riveting audit and tax. Well, funny enough, my journey started in this room specifically. My first event that I attended, I graduated the BAS marketing program in 2010, early 2011. And my first event that I attended was in this room. Well, I came here for free pizza, to be honest. I spoke to the lady who works for CPA. Now she works for CPA. She's the marketing director. And you know, I kept in touch with her over the course of like a year and a half. And I reached out to her, you know, I saw a role online and I reached out to her and I interviewed for the role and I got it. So funny enough, like, you know, you never know where you're gonna make a connection, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's all about following up and making sure you follow the path that you wanna go with. So I ended up at CPA as a social media manager, and from there, one of my friends from the same program, the BAS marketing program, we took a course together and she ended up at KPMG, and we were trying to figure out a role that would interest me over there because, as you know, it's a very riveting topic at KPMG, tax and stuff. But this role specifically interested me because it was more of a global nature and not specifically focusing on one area. So I just didn't want to do audit, tax, or advisory. I wanted to do all of them, and because thinking ahead, let's say in 10 years, I go somewhere else in a different organization, I want to have transferable skills to take from KPMG.
I'm one of those few York students that thought he was graduating in December and then found out he had one more credit to do. So
That happened to me too.
during that semester, you know, I took that credit and finished off my degree. I actually took a job driving and just delivering meals to people. Like, they were diet meals, and I would go from 9 at night till 3 in the morning. And this was sort of like just a job to do while I finished my degree. And then when I graduated, I noticed an ad where I could use those skills to actually work for a word-of-mouth marketing company who would go around Toronto and basically qualify people who they thought to be influencers for certain brands. So there were brands like Fat Farm Cologne or energy drinks for Coca-Cola. And we'd go around Toronto and actually, like, we'd drive around Toronto and qualify these influencers and make them a part of this word-of-mouth marketing campaign. So that kind of opened my eyes up to sort of a new field, something that was interesting to me. And I actually ended up going to do a one-year post-grad at Humber College for advertising copywriting. And I really enjoyed that. And then I parlayed that into a job working in the music industry where I managed social media for two signed bands for EMI and Universal. Money was not very good, but but social media was such a new thing at the time. This is around 2008, 2009. It really hadn't been monetized. I think, you know, there were no such thing as sponsored posts or really any paid component behind Facebook. We were all sort of doing it by the seat of our pants, and it was a lot of fun. And then I did that for a year, and then I moved on to a web development company where I did copywriting primarily, and I also did a little bit of user interface design, but that was a small component of my job. And then after that, I ended up at the current agency where I have been for about 5 years now, which is TechWyse, and I started as a social media manager there as well. I was actually the first social media manager at the company. Then grew that department to the point where we could hire somebody else. So I started up a content marketing division of the company, and then I did that for about a year and a half. And then at that point, we hired another person to do that, and then I became the director there. So I've sort of in our team, which we call the Guru department, all the subject matter experts. I lead up that team, so that's where I am now.
In my first year, I went to a career fair here at York, and they were recruiting for people to start working at an experiential agency, pretty big one. It's called Mosaic. They do a lot of stuff here at York. And I sort of fell into it because the summer after my first year, I moved home and back to my parents' place in Mississauga after being at school for a year, and, you know, realized that, it's really not a lot of fun sitting at home doing nothing all summer. And I wanted, I had a job, but I wanted something that was interesting and different and where I could meet a lot of people. I wasn't really looking for a career, I was just looking for something fun to do in the summer. And I remembered these people I'd met at York halfway through the year from this agency called Mosaic, and they seemed like a fun group, so I applied for a job there. Literally, that's kind of how it went. And I got a summer job with them, and I just sort of kept in touch with the recruiters at that agency and kept doing random event work. So, I'm going to be dating myself, but when the Rogers Home Phone launched, I did the launch for Rogers Home Phone, and then we did a bunch of stuff here at the Rexall Center for the Rogers Cup. When the Rogers Cup came here, I worked for a few things for Coca-Cola. So I just got really excited because I was getting paid to go to events and talk to people. And once I was finishing off university and I had to actually think to myself what I wanted to do with my career, I had one of my managers from Mosaic sat me down and said, hey, did you ever think about going into this field? And to be honest, I hadn't thought about it because while I was in school, I was always kind of taught to go to one path. And back then, experiential marketing wasn't really a thing, and nobody really knew what it was, and it had a very loosely defined category in the world of marketing, so I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, and it wasn't, everybody kind of went into the brand world. They became assistant brand managers in Procter & Gamble, and then brand managers, and then senior brand managers, so I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. But, I thought the people were nice, and I was having a good time, so I decided to interview. I got the job. My entry-level job was managing a team of 20 people in Toronto, and these 20 people went and did samplings at liquor stores across Ontario, and I'm sure you've seen them. You go into a liquor store, they offer you a sample, so I was the one who managed all those people. And it was, a bit of a slap in the face of realizing what managing people was like. Very rewarding, but very challenging. Thing to do, and I sort of kept going from there. I grew to a bigger team, a national scale, moved to another agency where I did a lot more strategy and development for clients, and now I'm at Fuse, where essentially we're starting up an experiential division. We have one client, and we need to get many, many more. It's a lot more of the business development and startup nature with a lot of the creative work that I love in this field. So experiential marketing is it's kind of a new age term. When I was in university, it wasn't being taught in school, and the kind of rebellious nature that I have, that really drew me to it. It's essentially marketing experiences. So what we do is we sit down with clients and understand what their objectives are as far as reaching consumers. And that really layers back to their overall marketing objectives. So as far as, I'll take a brand as an example, Brita Water. We're talking to the Brita Water client team and determining what their overall marketing objectives are, where they want to spend their money. And usually, they're trying to reach consumers in a certain way, whether it is talking about their product, whether it's, giving out samples, whether it's being in store in front of their customer. And so what we do is we help brands identify the best possible way for them to reach consumers. Sometimes that's through us with one-on-one engagement, building experiences for consumers. Sometimes it's us strategically redirecting them to a digital or social media or content development way of actually reaching their consumers. So where we would step in is the one-on-one consumer experience and helping brands build what that consumer experience looks like, specifically on either a campaign by campaign perspective or how it fits into their overall marketing strategy.
Completed a BAS with marketing and HR, so I did a dual focus. And in my third year, experiential education was introduced to the Atkinson faculty. Experiential education was the kind of informal way of providing internship opportunities, but you do it through a course. So say, for example, we were doing marketing research, whoever's taking a marketing research course. As part of the course, what would happen is students would be allowed the opportunity to actually work with a real life company. So we worked with Tourism Toronto and we did an actual market research project for them. So by the time I finished my last year, I didn't do any or hadn't done any formal internships per se, but I had a whole slew of experiential education projects on my resume that I could walk up to a company and really market myself and sell myself. Simultaneously, at the same time, what I was doing was also working and volunteering at the Student Alumni Relations office here. It was called the STARS office. back then. And that volunteering kind of helped me land kind of a summer part-time position over at the Schulich Career Center. And the Marketing Association at the time would hold info sessions, career fairs and whatnot. So I'd attend all of them and get out there and looking for a job now. I'm graduating, I need a job. So I interviewed with a whole slew of companies. And Petro-Canada, actually, the very first time I applied with them, they had 2 rounds of interviews. The very first time, I didn't pass. I didn't move forward in the process. So it wasn't until they came back to campus and recruited for an HR position that I ended up with them. And that HR position was managing their national campus recruitment program. So when I joined them, I flipped to the other side. I was doing exactly, where I was attending info sessions and trying to do career fairs. I was on the flip side organizing these info sessions for Petro-Canada, going to all the different schools and recruiting fantastic students like yourselves. So I did that for the first 2 years. Petro-Canada merged with Suncor Energy. Very early on in my career, I got a chance to work on one of the biggest mergers in Canadian history. So that really helped shape my outlook on, hey, do I want to stay in HR or not? It was a fantastic experience. But I came out of it saying, I'm out. I'm out at this point in my career. I moved into marketing communications, and at that time, it was very early on with the social media, one-to-one communications, email marketing, web-based marketing. So I worked in that team and for about 8 to 10 months before I got tapped on the shoulder to move across the country. So I moved across the country to good old Edmonton, Alberta, and I lived out in Alberta for 5 years, and I'm just coming back now. I didn't only grow as a professional, but I grew more as an individual. So, my world changed, my environment changed, and out there I did field roles. So it was more like the territory manager, financial consultant, very operations heavy. At one point, in my most recent roles, I was managing about $35 to $40 million worth of assets and business. And that's basically when you are a territory rep for a group of gas stations, but you manage everything from the beginning to the end in the sense of how do they greet guests, how they manage the guest experience, to how are you making money, how are you cutting your expenses, and how are we adding value to the bottom line. And when I came back, so now I've moved about 3 times to the company, so I just recently came back to Ontario and landed in loyalty. I did not express an interest whatsoever. But just connecting the dots with the past roles that I have held, it landed me in marketing. So Petro-Canada is all about, the generalist mentality, trying to diversify yourself and dabble in different areas, and they allow you to do so. But everybody's journey is different. Mine has been very different than, you'll hear a whole bunch of paths up here. We may end up in the same spot somehow, or we may cross paths, but how we get there is very different.
Statistics was really a hobby for me. I'm a huge hockey fan, and when I was in university, I used to, as a broke student, I would enter these hockey pools every season. And I remember my first hockey pool that I entered, I lost an undisclosed amount of money, but it was substantial. In my next hockey pool, I was able to choose players that other people overlooked because they were undervalued by looking behind the numbers. And so I started to win more money and win more pools. Being able to quantify something that's normally qualitative. At the same time, I was at York, I was studying marketing, so I was learning all about branding, product management, and as well as kind of general business and strategy. After graduating, I started to work at Target Canada, where they undertook one of the most aggressive retail expansions internationally, sort of in the industry, so opening up over 124 stores within 9 months. And there was this moment, I was attending a lot of meetings, and there was this moment in one of the meetings where, one of the executives was talking a lot about, this feels right, or my gut says this. And me as a statistics guy, that's against my religion. It was the marriage of really both worlds of sort of marketing and branding, as well as all the statistics stuff that I was doing on the side. And so now at SHOP is sort of the marriage of all three, of technology, statistics, and marketing.
You guys obviously have to do a lot of presentations, I think, as part of your classwork. I can't stress the importance of that. It can get you so far, it can win you new business, it can completely change the makeup of your company if you're able to present well and really convince and persuade people to, let's say, take on a new service that could really benefit them. And if you're interested in like digital marketing, search marketing, stuff like that, I also really can't stress enough for you to all take the free Google AdWords courses. There's basically, I think, 5 courses that you can take, and there's also an analytics one that I'm sure we're familiar about. Highly sought after skills, and a lot of the times when we're recruiting for people in those types of roles, let's say a paid search manager, somebody who manages Google AdWords budgets for clients, they're very hard to come by. And if you have those certifications under your belt, even if you don't have work experience, it's really a really nice thing for you to have.
The one thing you always have to do is, number 1, present your ideas. Number 2, persuade and get buy-in from leadership to get stuff done. So you might have the best and the brightest idea going forward, but the things that are roadblocks are budgets, or how many people do you need to work on that team? How many hours worth of work are you going to have? Which client is it? How much revenue does this client bring in? For example, we are the global auditors for Pepsi, right? And they are a platinum level client, so I'm talking top of the pie. Anything new that Pepsi comes out with, we see it first as well. So if you look at Pepsi's balance sheet, for example, they do so many new things. So one of the questions I think always is, if from our perspective, what is it that we can do that help Pepsi increase its market share, help its business, right? Although we are just the global auditors for them, from our client team's perspective, if someone has an idea, the first thing you're going to ask is, how is it going to increase the revenue that we get from Pepsi? How many people are you going to need more to work on the Pepsi team, right? So persuasion and getting buy-in is something that I personally think I could benefit from.
Yeah, I think there's a book by a PhD, Robert Cialdini, I think, called The 6 Principles of Influence. And if you read that, there's some really good stuff in there. It's actually the 6 Principles of Influence, I think, and the book's called Persuasion.
There's also another book called, and I don't remember the author, but it's called The Power of Influence. And it really helps to kind of graduate your mentality from school environment or course-based environments to real-life practical. And I think that's where I was going to go with my tip would be, we walked in on Kathleen earlier talking about the internship program here. That is something that I so badly wished we had when I was in school here. And you heard me allude to it. I went out and found my own internships, and I would work for free. I worked free for agencies. I worked free for the City of Toronto on some big projects. Didn't get paid a penny, but boy, it got me real life experience and gave me a chance to practice those presentation skills of persuasion, just working on real life programs and projects. So you guys do have a program now, which I'm so excited to hear, so take advantage of it. It's going to pay off in dividends, because when you guys are really sitting in that interview, and you've got that resume, but you've got those experiences to speak to, that's what's going to really hit home with the employers. In addition to your school, GPA, all that stuff goes far, but it's the real life experience that really, really speaks volumes.
We're always told to come up with the next big thing. What is the next big idea? So that's sort of, my world revolves around creative thinking, creative ideas. That said, we make fun of the statistics and the financial piece a lot, but at the end of the day, that's where marketing's going. It's all a numbers game. And you can have the best idea in the world, but if you can't quantify it, you're not going to sell it. And every creative idea and every creative presentation needs to have logic by guys like this on each end talking to the financial impact. So I would say, I very much ignored that part of my education, but I really do wish that I spent more time thinking it through, because that is actually the biggest skill that I'm learning every day in my career, sitting with some of my market research guys and analytics guys, telling them to teach me how they get to certain things, because that's what I need to sell some of my ideas. Everything is quantified. On an experience perspective, my feedback would be to experience everything. And what I mean by that is anything and everything that the school offers as far as internships and ongoing education and ongoing networking, as cliche as it sounds, that's the way to build those connections in order to find places in your career that you want to go to. Connected with people that used to be in my class when I graduated with my marketing degree, and we've sort of helped each other out in various parts of our career and introduced each other to new fields. So I would say networking and making those connections through experiences and talking to people is probably one of the most impactful ways of getting ahead. Because if you send an application online, you're just a person on an application. Versus if you actually know someone, or if you have a relationship with someone, you're so much more than that, and you have that foot forward.
Find people that are smarter than you and leverage the heck out of them. You'll naturally be more in the know just by being around them. I think the second piece I have is around feedback. I remember one time I was, this was in, I forgot which course, but I was doing a presentation, and I kind of, at the end, I just kind of like, it was really awkward at the ending. I was kind of socially awkward, and everyone kind of awkwardly clapped. I just kind of said, oh, that's the end of my presentation. The professor kind of said, well, stop there, Dave. Next time when you end a presentation, just say thank you, and everyone will know to clap. And in the moment, I was super embarrassed. Like, it didn't feel good, right? I mean, you're kind of being called out in front of the whole class. But after a while, I started to realize, he gave you that kind of small piece of feedback because he cared. He cared to make you better. And, because of that small piece of feedback, all my presentations afterwards were just that much better. And so think about the people that are most critical of you. It could be professors, parents, friends, close friends, honest friends. They're critical of you because they care.
We've all alluded to the fact of how important networking and keeping in touch with your contacts and really leveraging those contacts is. But remember and keep in mind that your network has a company to sell you on. So if I'm bringing in your information, and I can talk about you till the cows come home, and that reference will probably do wonders and it'll help. But when I do put a cover letter or a resume of somebody that I strongly believe in front of a different person, a manager, a director, whoever it may be, that's what's going to speak for them. So, equally spend enough time to just ensure that your cover letter and your resume really does, speak to who you are and what you bring to the table.
Building your LinkedIn network, yes, of course, you should do that. And you may not be applying for, a graphic designer role or a copywriter role where traditionally a portfolio might be a requirement for you. But, if you're looking to get into something like search or experiential marketing or analytics, like actually showing your employer that you have an interest in doing in this field is really important. And one of the ways that I would do it if I was, I blog a lot at my company, and to actually have a blog just talking about your experiences, your maybe you want to recap some news for the week, or you found something very interesting. Give yourself an outlet online that's not just your resume, but that is proof and evidence of your passion for the industry where you want to work.
One of the things was when you Google your name, you have to see what comes up, right? When I Googled my name the first time, not a lot of things came up, but I wanted a potential employer, and trust me, potential employer is going to Google your name. If you're in marketing and if you're applying for, let's say, a global marketing role at KPMG, we're going to Google your name. You can be rest assured. So before you come and talk to us, make sure you Google your name yourself. So what I did was, when you type my name in, the first thing I wanted people to see is my social media channels. So the Twitter, the LinkedIn, not my Facebook. The drunken pictures can stay with my friends. And also, if I blog, I want my blog to show up. So now, if you Google my name, you'll see my Twitter, you'll see my LinkedIn, you'll see my blog. The way you can do that, and you learned that in that course, and it changed everything for me, is it's search engine optimization, right? So the better your profile is on LinkedIn, the better your profile is on Twitter. I think you have to reach like 500 tweets or something. It shows up on Google, right? So that's one thing that I found really powerful. And then to the point made earlier about resumes, it's important. And one thing that helped me is, on my resume, what I started doing is, obviously there was my work experience and everything. I started putting my Twitter handle and my LinkedIn. And in terms of, I'm a big branding guy. Working for a big firm, you have to be a branding guy. If you look at all across my social media platforms, all the handles are the same. So my hashtag Twitter is the same, my Twitter handle is the same, my LinkedIn is the same. So I just put one handle and it applies all across. So when a potential employer looks at it, they know that you're consistent, number one. Number two, they know that you know what you're talking about because you're in the marketing field and you're in social media. So if you're applying for a social media manager job or social media coordinator or even a marketing coordinator, they know you at least know the basics.
Your personal brand is incredibly important, but also I'm not a fan of the blanket resume. And I know we used to do it a lot back in the day. I'm definitely at fault for the blanket resume. Everybody gets the same one. I think we're at a place now where every job is so unique that you actually do have to put the time in to make sure that, you know, you're hitting on the objectives of that job or what the needs are for that employer. Because to be honest, as a hiring manager, and I've hired a lot of entry-level people in my day as a hiring manager, I get like 10 resumes sitting on my desk that have already been, you know, already gone through a first round of cuts from HR, and then HR drops 10 on my desk, and I have probably 5 minutes before the interviews come in to look at 10 resumes. And that's the reality of it, right? So when I look at a resume, and we learn this in school where hiring managers are looking at those keywords, it's the honest truth. Not only are we looking at those keywords, is I dive directly into the experience section and directly try to relate that experience back to what we do. And that's it. And I have that 5 to 10 minutes to look through 10 resumes and skim them through. And before that person walks through the door, I've probably made a couple of judgments on their resume. And that's sort of the world we live in, right? So I think as you're applying to those positions, making sure that you are hitting on all those points that are in the job description and the application within your resume and making them look like, you know, if it's for a creative role, making them look creative. If it's for an analytics role, making sure you have those key pieces in there so that when it does land inevitably on that hiring manager's desk, you have all of those key pieces already outlined, so there's no question about it when you walk in through the door.
I can confidently say now that most university resumes are terrible. Mine was terrible, like it is just a fact. We tend to focus on sort of the minutia, the stuff that doesn't really matter, like what size should my font be, or like what are my margins, or how many pages. Instead, focus on making every word earn its way onto the page. So, like she said, it's literally 30 seconds. Boom. Okay. Oh, it's this person. It's this. It's technology and marketing guy. That's what it is. That's what I get from the resume. Make that stand out if that's what you want to portray. So I would say most resumes, if you take a look at your own resume, get friends to take a look at your resume, you can probably cut it down to half of what it is right now.
Mm-hmm. And feel free to add your LinkedIn references, because that's
Yes.
another trend that I've started to see happen with resumes. You work hard for those references. When people do leave you a reference on LinkedIn, challenge them to make it credible and really meaty so that they're actually speaking to what you added in terms of value, what you did. And I've seen resumes come in, now they're down to literally 1-page cover letter, 1-page resume, and then boom, LinkedIn references will take up a whole page. And that to me is fantastic, because then I'm just going back and going, whoa, you've done all this. And there's people backing you up and saying, hey, if I could, I'd hire this person or keep them some way. Fantastic, I want you. To me personally, I wouldn't really use a criteria of whether they're reputational or not. The reason I actually became known with this trend is I've received a lot of resumes coming from people who used to work at Target recently. Right? Whatever happened with Target, but these people are phenomenal, like in terms of the skills that they built, the time period, and kind of like what they went through, the experience, and all the different things that they managed and they learned, and you kind of see those things come to life when they tell you a story in an interview. So I wouldn't really talk about reputational. I would more talk about or look at the references more from a perspective of what did you do, how did you add value, what did your experience consist of, what were the key skills that you built. Right? Like it's kind of a journey, like your references should almost show a matching journey to the different experiences or jobs that you've had. And I think that's what speaks volumes is basically what you've achieved and how you added value to that company. That's what I would be looking for.
I was about 2 months after I graduated, I landed up a job. It was a lot of customizing resume, I must tell you that. But one of the things that helped me was the connections I had built by attending the events at York. I know it's an overstated statement that attend more events, and go for more networking events, but you're not going to believe it until you actually do it and you actually see the results. So even after the 4 of us or 5 of us or 6 of us explaining it to you, unless you do it and you see the results, that happened with me too. I was one of those, I would sit at the back of the class and I would show up late to class and stuff, but when you actually see the results, you actually believe it. So attend more of the career events that York has. A lot of students don't take advantage of the resources that York has. That's one area that I would definitely stress on, because I realized that after I left. Like, the Career Center is a great resource, right? Number 2 is talk to your professors. One of the things I found out from the marketing courses, especially the advanced ones, like the 4th year ones, the professors, they have tremendous networks outside, like insanely crazy network. One of my professors, she was, I think, the director of marketing for Unilever or P&G. So the stuff I learned from her is crazy. And then Lisa Violo, she was a professor for my e-marketing course. She has crazy network too. She used to lead up the marketing for RIM and BlackBerry. So talk to your professors. They know people outside that can sit down with you, have an informational interview to get the conversation going. So those would be my 2 tips. Like, one is leverage the network at York, 2, talk to your professors.
I don't know how many of us took part in the TASTE program, but that was one where, York grads would come and have lunch with us and just share, in our case, it was a beer on a Friday afternoon, on a nice sunny day. So, you do need to definitely build up your relationships in the area that you want to work. But, from the time that I graduated and until now, like, the landscape has changed so much in that there are communities online for everything, right? So, there's for me, there are many communities regarding search engine optimization that I can take part in, and that I do take part in, that my brand, my Twitter handle and all that stuff is very visible in, right? So if you find like that you want to get into experiential marketing,
You got it.
experiential marketing, sorry. Then see if there's a Facebook group for it. See if there are Twitter chats going on about it. Don't just rely. Your professors can help you to introduce you to different people. Learn a lot from those too. But if you make yourself visible in that space online, that can go a long way in building a reputation before you even have the job.
It honestly was my network that got me my first job. I hadn't graduated yet before my first day at work. I hadn't even written my last final, but I was just so passionate about what I was doing, and I loved what I did, and I loved the people, and I loved, that was the only job I applied for, which is actually the dumbest decision I could have made. Now that I look back at it, 8 years later, I'm thinking to myself, wow, that was a dumb idea. But realistically, that was the only job I applied for. My father was completely freaked out because he was kind of like, where's your backup plan? I'm like, nope, don't have one. This is it. And you know what? Luckily, it worked out. It didn't work out for everyone who went that route. But I have to say, I called everyone I knew, all my old managers in that company. I told every single one of them that I was applying for that job, and I found out who the hiring manager was, and I told every one of them to send an email to that hiring manager. Like, I'm talking, this is, 8 years ago, so I did not have a LinkedIn profile back then. I had a Facebook that I made private before I applied for my first job based on all the pictures that were on it. So that was, my way of, I literally got 7 of my old managers to send emails to that hiring manager because I wanted the job so bad. So, when you know what you want and you have passion for something, honestly, you do what it takes to get it. And so I think, find that passion, because that's really powerful. And when you're talking to someone and you have that passion, people can feel it. But 2, if you're trying to figure out what that is, talk to as many people as possible and just ask them questions. Because, you know, I never say no when someone comes up to me and asks me what I do, and I'm sure the same goes with all of these guys up here. That's why we're here. You know, so don't be afraid to stop someone and say, hey, you know what? I don't really know much about this field, but I want to learn more about it. Can we chat and have a coffee or a beer? That's
Yeah.
way better. So definitely, you know, ask as many questions as possible.
And let's say you've got a relationship with someone, you went for the interview, it didn't work out. Don't just abandon that relationship. Maintain it, because you know, I know people at my job at my workplace who interviewed, you know, a year ago and now only got the job, right? So like, you've got to keep those relationships strong. You know, maybe it's an email here and there, right? Maybe it's a drop in, maybe it's asking to go out for a beer, go out for dinner, but that it really can help you. It can't hurt you.
Don't lose the commitment. You know, a lot of people will message me and IM me on LinkedIn. Hey, you interested? I'm interested in the energy industry. I'm interested in oil and gas. They're a chemical engineer, mechanical engineer. What do I know about that? But you'll constantly get IM to say, do you want to grab a coffee? Do you want to grab this? If you stay determined, I will say yes, right? I'm not going to say yes to each and every one of them, but if I see that you've got the passion and the focus and the determination, there will come a time when I'll be like, of course, like, I want to know what you're all about. Why you're so passionate about this? I'm going to drop on the whole association piece, because one of the things that I recently learned in my career is that there's a big world out there, and you know, leveraging the resources on campus, doing all that stuff. Equally, get involved in the associations off campus. There are a ton of areas where you can learn about the niche area that you want to be in, or learn about specific real life skills that you can learn and grow about. But more specifically, it's another networking avenue for you. And the more that you expand your network, the more you realize that it is a big world out there. And there's so much to stay open-minded about. And stay open-minded. Don't, you know, cut yourself short and say, you know what, I don't think I'm interested, because you never know what's going to pique your interest and what's going to evolve, and your journey's going to become great. One of the things is that I was going to mention is my friend, and he's a very entrepreneurial spirit kind of a guy, and I can't think about the club right now, but his name is Dave Wilkin, and he initially, when he left university, did something like experiential marketing, but it was very campus marketing related, Redwood Strategic. I don't know if you're familiar, but he has now started a new kind of online community, and it's called Coffee Chat, something like that. Google his name, Wilkin. He has the world's executives, directors signed up to do exactly what we're talking about, where you as a student would sign up, you'd get paired up to have a coffee with a director or an executive of a big company, small company, mid-sized, and they facilitate it. So there are a ton of great options out there for you, and that's something that I would jump on immediately if I was in your seat.
If I found a particular position interesting, or I just wanted to learn more about a particular field, I just reached out cold to people. I would just send them either an email or just a quick LinkedIn message, and just said, hey, you know, let's grab coffee. I'm in your area. You know, I'd love to grab coffee. When, you know, in reality, I was here and I would go to Mars to have coffee with this guy. But you know, you'd be surprised. I'm not saying everybody's going to say yes, but you'd be surprised the amount of people out there that are willing to help you. I think that's one of the big things psychologically, I guess, that prevents us from reaching out, is, you know, sort of fear of rejection, or fear of, you know, that they're just gonna, you know, say no or ignore the message. But you'd be surprised how many people are looking to help.
Coming from fourth year, when you're like very intimidated by even talking to someone working at a big company, and like someone who's like a senior manager or like a director, I've done the whole calling out of the cold and messaging out of the cold kind of thing. Obviously you get rejections, but the roles that I've had, out of the 3 roles that I've had, 2 of them were because I reached out to them from out of the cold. Like, there was nothing that we had in common or anything. It was just, here's a role, here's the name of the company. I just went to their website, clicked on contact us, picked up the phone, called up their number and said, can I speak to someone in the HR department? And I connected with them, and you know, they sent me their email, and off we go.
You just made me think of one thing that we actually do on our blog. We interview industry experts, SEO experts, Google AdWords experts, analytics experts and such. And we just we send them a bunch of questions, and then we publish that on our blog. I don't know, perhaps if you really were very ambitious, you could find people who you really admire and just ask them if you wanted to sit down for an interview for my blog and write it. I don't know, just a thought.
I'll give you an example. So, so I interviewed with KPMG 3 times. The first time was I reached out to someone out of the cold. It was a partner, and as you all probably know, partners have very high amount of egos and stuff, right? So this partner was, very busy and stuff. So he took some time out, and very nice of him to sit down with me and have coffee, right? So I spoke to him, obviously, before I went and met him. I looked up the website, I looked up what they do, what KPMG does, which areas they work in, because I didn't want to sound stupid and say, oh yeah, you're PwC, right? So obviously know your stuff about the company, number one. Number two, look at what roles are posted online, right? Let's say there is no marketing coordinator or marketing manager role posted, but there is a, hypothetically speaking, operations coordinator and operations manager role posted, right? So talk to them about the different areas with the pointer from operations coordinator and operations manager, and say, let's say there is the operations team. Do you guys already have a marketing team, or how does that work? So take pointers from the current opportunities that are already available, and then lead into the areas that you want to go into. And then obviously the person you're talking to is also not stupid. They will know that you're there for a job, right? So it's kind of the unspoken truth, right? The person you're having coffee with knows that you're talking to them because you want a job. The person, they'll definitely respond. They won't have coffee with you unless they actually are potentially looking at hiring you.
Or they know somebody.
Or they know somebody that in a different team, right? So what this partner did was he introduced me to the employer brand manager for KPMG. This lady manages all the applications and internally, externally, and all that kind of stuff. So it was nice of him. He introduced me to the HR manager, and I emailed her. This was, I think, 3 months, 4 months after I graduated. This is when I just got the first job. So I was already in a job, but this was still going on. So I emailed her, nothing happened, and it went cold for like 6 months. And then I found out one of my friends from the digital marketing course, she's a marketing coordinator at KPMG. So that's how it started again, and then that lady realized that I have a strong referral now from internal. So that's how I got the call again. So you never know how it's going to go. Just make sure that you follow up with the leads. It's kind of like a sales call, right? Make sure you follow up, make sure you close the deal, and you get the job.
And ask for it.
Yeah.
Ask for it. When you're sitting there, I sit there with so many young people who I know have called me because there's a job available. And we'll sit, we'll have a great coffee, they'll ask me about my career, I'll talk about myself for an hour. And then they don't ask for it in the end. And I'm just like holding them going, just ask me, So I would say don't even stress about it. Just ask, hey, are there any opportunities available for us to work together? Because as a hiring manager, I'm not dumb. I know why I'm there. I'm looking for people, or else I wouldn't have said yes to you. So just go for it and ask the question. I would say the second thing that a lot of young people do is, and I did this too as a young person, I go directly to the top and I'm like, okay, who's the director? I want to speak to them. But in reality, and I'm sure from an HR perspective you can agree to this, the director tends to be the last signature or check mark in the box.
Even if,
yeah.
Even
It's
if.
usually, I'll go to my managers and I'll say, okay, who do you want to hire? Give me your top 2 and tell me what your favorite one is. And that's usually how it goes. It's the junior people who are making a lot of those decisions. Or maybe if they're not making that final decision, they're giving strong recommendations. So if there are 2 people left and my junior person says, hey, person A is the one I want to hire, I'm going to already skew pretty heavily towards person A, because at the end of the day, I'm not the one managing them. It's my junior person that's managing them, and I want to empower my junior person to be able to make those decisions. Now, if person A is absolutely awful, then I have a different problem on my hands, but 99% of the time, that person, if HR's approve them and my team's approve them, that's the person who we're going to go with. So I would say, don't necessarily go and find the most senior person in your, when you search your LinkedIn network and you look at, power of LinkedIn, how many circles away you are. I don't know how it works, how it works, to that person. So don't necessarily go for the most senior person there. That's a good person to get to know. But sometimes it's those junior sort of middle managers who have the most decision-making power in the overall chain of command. And of course, HR. I mean, HR has power over all of us at the end of the day. Like, they 90% of the time tell us what to do. So within HR and that junior management level, those are really good people to get to know as well.
I think it was third year I attended one of these sessions, and I think it was the career session for IBM. So I left the session and I went home, and I was obviously looking for a job. So I went to the IBM website and I found out who the CEO was, and got his email, and I emailed him. It was like a contact us tab. So I emailed Sam Palmisano. You can probably even Google him now. So I emailed him, and I think 2 weeks later I got a call from IBM saying, obviously in my email I put down, and it was in like very like bad grammar kind of email, So I put down, I'm looking for an internship or a marketing role at IBM. I didn't even know where the IBM offices were at that time. And I got a call from the HR department saying, you emailed Sam, and the first thing in my head, I'm going, who's Sam? And she's like, Sam Palmisano, the CEO of IBM. And I'm like, yes, I did email him. So I talked to her, and in the end I find out I'm not supposed to email him. I'm supposed to email HR. So to your point, definitely email someone that has the power to hire you.
Whoever's very genuine. Mm-hmm. You've got to be, I remember my days in campus, and now I'm on the flip side, so I am hiring for roles, loyalty-specific roles, but I remember going to certain universities and schools and, seeing the robotic type of a student who knows their stuff, knows what to say it, when to laugh, when to shake your hand, how hard to shake it, and you're just like, oh my goodness, like, I'm looking for that standout person who is just really true to themselves. And you're passionate, like your passion speaks volumes, like when the way you talk, the way you ask questions, the way your presence is, all that stuff really will stand out on its own and let it speak for itself. Knowing your stuff, I heard somebody talk about it earlier and reference it, like just know your stuff, know the company, know what company I work for, kind of those basics, but it's really about your passion and just being very sincere, be yourself.
I still remember, it's a very good question, and I asked the same questions when I was sitting back there too, because obviously there's like 6 of us and there's, let's say, 20 or 30 of you guys. The one thing I found, and someone told me, one of the people I spoke to at one of the events told me, it's figure out, let's say KPMG for example, right? Figure out what's happening in the news for KPMG and talk to that person about it. You will get their attention for sure. Figure out what's happening for Fuse or Petro-Canada or SHOP.CA. You will get that person's attention for sure. Rather than, oh yeah, great presentation, nice talking to you, can you hire me? Instead of that, start with, get their attention, right? Talk to them about their company, because we all live and breathe our jobs, like it or not. And we will know anything that's in the news about our company.
The first thing is sort of has to do with the kind of the resume and interview process, and that's having a narrative. And so what I mean by that is, I'll instantly look for, like what's your story? Like what is, I am the blank that can help you do blank, right? How, because, it's all about me here. The second thing is around attitude. So it's probably more important, and this is more interpersonal, probably more than, I got a 4.0 and, I have all these certifications. Are you passing the airport test, right? So if I'm stuck in a layover for 10 hours, am I going to hate myself because I have to spend 10 hours with this person, or can we have a normal conversation?
We always used to think, oh, just ask the person a dozen questions about them, keep them talking about themselves, and that's what hiring managers, recruiters are looking for, right? Who doesn't like talking about themselves? It's kind of an old age mentality now
Yeah.
with the new generations coming on board. I can flip the question to you any second. And it's more like, are you okay to answer? Are you willing to share your story? Are you willing to equally confidently talk about what your experiences are and how can we relate? So that all my conversations go that way. Like I'll have a dozen mini interviews from the office to the coffee shop,
Yeah.
right? If I meet you in the line at Starbucks, if we're chatting, I might just say, hey, do you want to pass me your LinkedIn or your contact info or something? I have a job that I'm looking for. Because you were very real, you were able to carry your conversation, and you shared with me because I want to learn about you too.
I want to know that you want to be there. And I think I'm going to ask you some pretty specific questions to make sure that you want to be there. A kind of person who sort of does what it takes to reach success.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that comes from attitude. It comes from approachability. It comes from, authenticity. It comes from the ability to know when you're doing something good or where you're doing something bad. Accountability. There's a lot of things that kind of go into that little segment. But it as a hiring manager, you get that gut feeling about it. Now, at this point in my career, my interview with people is always over a coffee. I do it in a public space. I'll do it at a coffee shop, and I will go through the entire process of ordering coffee to sitting down and drinking a coffee with them.
Mm-hmm.
Because when a person is taken out of that super sterile interview environment and into real life, you tend to see pieces of them that either you really like or you don't really like.
I like that.
And so now, and I have people doing a lot of the screening for me, to be fair, but now I'm at a place where my final sort of hires, before I hire them, if it's a big hire, like if it's a senior position, I take them out to dinner, because that's a big, can I have dinner with them? That's a pretty big thing. Because, honestly, there have been times where I've taken someone out for dinner and I've seen the way they've spoken to a server. And I've said, you know what, you're not a fit for our organization. Because it's just in that cultural, dynamics and dynamics of who you are as a person that comes out in some of those social settings. So, I would say if you truly can show that you want to be there and you have passion for what you're doing and you do your homework, and you do your research and you're able to speak to that person one-on-one, you are a standout. That said, I always go back to the passion point, because if you don't have passion, I don't have passion for soap and toothpaste. So when I was interviewing for Procter & Gamble, I did a pretty terrible job, because I do not have passion for that at all. Versus I have a lot of passion for working with people and being at events and running events and being creative. So when I actually interviewed for that job, it just oozes out of you, right? So find those things you love and you're passionate about. And if you're passionate about numbers, go in and talk about how passionate you are about hockey cards and stats. Because that, is what's going to be the thing that sets you apart.
Do you guys know Google Alerts? Do you guys know what those are? Yeah? So you sign up for a Google Alert, and every time certain words are published on the internet, you get an email. So if you want to be, let's say, a social media manager or marketing coordinator, make those Google Alerts, and then you'll get an email in your inbox for anywhere those words appear on the web. And 9 times out of 10, they're all job ads.